Hello and welcome. It's Monday, 18th September 2023. Peace is the path to the prosperity of a nation. Let peace reign. On the news this afternoon, Commissioner for Education Chinedu Mom says no fees for registration into public schools. Airstrikes destroy dozens of illegal refineries in Rivers State. Man renews call for justice 3 years after police stray bullet left him on wheelchair in Port Harcourt. Federal government to meet labor leaders over planned indefinite strike. President Tinubu arrives New York for UN General Assembly. On the foreign scene, Egypt's main opposition to boycott election. I am Constance Mega. The Rivers State Commissioner for Education, Chinedu Mom, says the state government has not authorized any form of payment for school registration in public schools. Professor Mom said this today on Nigeria Info FM's Morning Crossfire program, where Professor Mom urged parents to report any instances where they are required to pay fees prior to registering their children into any school. He assured them that such cases will be investigated and addressed. And he said education, including the West African Examination Council and National Examination Council examinations, are free in Rivers State.
I want to reiterate again that education is free in Rivers State. We have not authorized the collection of any amount of money from any students in public schools, across the state. Make an official report, then I will swing into action. Because as far as I'm concerned, the government of the state headed by Sir Asmila Ifubra has not authorized the collection of any fee of any sort, because the continuity and consolidation mantra has it that education is free in Rivers State.
But Professor Mom also frowned at the non-maintenance of facilities in public schools.
So the principal or the head teacher, as the case may be, is supposed to bring report to the zonal offices. We have zonal offices of the ministry, zonal offices of the schools board, both the junior secondary schools board, the UBE, as well as the senior secondary schools board. Now the zonal directors bring this information to the office of the commissioner, where we process this information and take necessary actions. So like I said, I cannot sit in my office and know all that is happening. That's why I've said this committee again to go back and check out, the status or the state of these schools.
In the meantime, an educationist, Ben Yewusira, says there is need for the community to also be involved in safeguarding and securing of infrastructures provided by the government to schools. Dr. Yewusira, who is also a lecturer at the University of Port Harcourt, appealed to the communities to take some necessary steps to secure and protect government facilities.
Education is too important to be left solely in the hands of government, and so the involvement of the communities will be required. If we need to secure some of those infrastructure, we need some form of collaboration from members of the community, because they are the people who are actually doing this vandalization. People hardly come from outside. And
in another development, the Rivers State Ministry of Social Welfare and Rehabilitation has advised parents to refrain from giving money to people asking for monetary help on the streets in order to keep the streets clean and safe. The State Commissioner for the Ministry, Inime Aguma, gave this advice in an interview with correspondent Martha Okere as the ministry continues to remove the mentally challenged and people experiencing homelessness on streets in Port Harcourt.
Port Harcourt is a hot zone for begging, because they always believe that when they come, the people give them money. So I think that we should probably refrain from that, and let's see how we can get our streets, our highways free of destitute and other people. And the reality is that if you want to help somebody, help the person off the street, not on the street for continual return by that person to the street. There's a lot of network going on. For them to even be comfortable on the street, there's so much going on.
Well, Mrs. Aguma said the Ministry of Social Welfare and Rehabilitation will also focus on the removal of street children.
We decided to take the adults off the streets first, because you must understand the limitations of the institutions we have. When we are done with this one, with the speed we are going, we will not get our street children off the street. We understand that some of them are probably there because they probably want an education and they are not able to. But we found out in the past that even when we try to engage them with education, they still scream up from the place because they are looking for quick money. And of course, again, there are some cartels behind these street children, you see. So we're carrying out investigations, we're asking questions, we're working with the police, and we're hopeful that we will get to help those that are genuinely in need of assistance.
Moving on, the Nigerian Air Force says airstrikes have destroyed at least 30 active illegal oil refining sites in Kwothan Channel and Bile in the Degema local government area of Rivers State. The Air Force spokesperson, Air Commodore Edward Gapquet, said in a statement on Sunday that the air components of Operation Delta Safe destroyed storage tanks, reservoirs and Cotonou boats suspected of siphoning crude oil from a flow station. It said the illegal refining sites have been destroyed in the areas of Bile and Kwothan in the last 2 months. Now, it's been almost 3 years since a tricycle driver, Chukwuma Norum, popularly known as Schoolboy, was killed by a trigger-happy policeman at Mbichi School Field, Woko, Rivers State, over 100 naira. Recall that the incident led to a protest by youths and other tricycle drivers, leaving about 3 people dead and others with injuries. Now, one of those hit by a stray bullet on that fateful day, Amechi Efungu, now uses a wheelchair. Mr. Efungu, a former truck driver, tells our correspondent that he still wants justice to be served on the matter.
The thing is too difficult for me. There was time between nothing again. Even the time that I started having beds off, so they say I should buy water bed. I was looking for help everywhere. This is very, very difficult for us. My wife is teaching for private school, and the private school is just a small school. I have 2 children. They just entered basic 4. I'm using waterproof now for my manhood. I'm not using caretaker because there is no money. Only drop to carry me go UPPH to change that caretaker is 12,000.
He said his mother fainted and died when she saw him in a wheelchair.
When my mother from village come to see me, I always sit on the bed when she's with me. So the bed they carry me up and put for wheelchair, that was the day I'm going to check up. As my mother seen me, my mother fainted. That shock hit my mother.
The 46-year-old father of 2 recounted failed meeting attempts with 4 past commissioners of police in Rivers State.
We went to the commissioner of police. I'm on which I didn't climb up, but my wife, who is the human rights lawyer, climb up and go and see the commissioner. The commissioner said we should go to the state ID. We now go back to state ID that very day. State ID say we should go back to commissioner that is him that we talk what we have. Before we go shadow another day, they have changed that very commissioner. The second one come. Before we book again, they change them. This very commissioner now is the third commissioner.
And he's now asking authorities to pay him compensation.
If the police can settle me, give me money for compensation. I'm a truck driver before. It's where I normally park my motor that I was going that very early morning when I need to be tested. So anyhow, if I can see people to help me, there is something for me.
Recall that the 2020 incident happened on a day when the world was marking International Human Rights Day, which is December 10. Now, away from that, the federal government and the leadership of the Nigerian Labour Congress, NLC, will meet today to resolve issues over the planned indefinite strike. The Director of Information, Ministry of Labour and Employment, Olajide Oshundu, disclosed that the meeting between the 2 parties disclosed this in a statement on Sunday. Now, this comes about a week after the NLC shunned an earlier meeting with the federal government and embarked on a 2-day warning strike over increasing hardship and suffering across the country caused by the removal of fuel subsidy. Now, they are threatening a total and indefinite shutdown of the economy within 14 working days or 21 days after the warning strike if the government does not take steps to address the hardship being experienced across the country. Still to come, tribunal set to deliver judgment on petition of former Zamfara State Governor Bello Matawale. Stay tuned.
Nigeria Info, the hub for
set to deliver its verdict on the petition filed by the former governor of the state, Bello Matawale, challenging the validity of the election that brought in Dauda Lawal as the governor of the state. Recall that former Governor Matawale, who is now Minister of State for Defense, had accused INEC of failing to include the results of some ward areas. The Edo State Deputy Governor, Philip Shuaibu, has been denied access to his old office at the Government House in Benin. Mr. Shuaibu arrived at the Government House this morning but met the gate leading to his office locked. The Edo State Deputy Governor, while making a call to an unidentified person, said he is yet to receive a formal letter from the Governor's office relocating him to a new office. The development is the latest in the tussle between Governor Obaseki and his deputy. While there have been speculations about plans to impeach Mr. Shuaibu, the Edo State Assembly has denied such. President Bola Tinubu has arrived at the John F. Kennedy Airport in New York to attend the 78th United Nations General Assembly. The president was received by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, the permanent representative of Nigeria to the United Nations, and other government officials. The theme of this year's General Assembly is Rebuilding Trust and Reigniting Global Solidarity, Accelerating Action on the 2030 Agenda and its Sustainable Development Goals towards peace, prosperity, progress, and sustainability for all. The National Assembly has hinted on plans to expedite the screening of nominees for the positions of the Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, as well as the deputies. The Parliament said this will be done along with a list of 2 ministerial nominees of President Bola Tinubu. The President earlier nominated Yemi Cardoso, a former Lagos State Commissioner for Budget and Economic Planning, as the new CBN Governor. He also appointed Jamila Ibrahim and Ayodele Olawande as Minister of Youths and Minister of State for Youths. In business, 23 states grew their foreign loans by 64.26% in 6 months to about $462 million as at the end of June. Now, the external debt data from the Debt Management Office says that most of the loans were taken from China, India, France, and other countries. But this was despite the persistent fall of the naira, making dollar-denominated loans more expensive. But the increase in bilateral loans showed a growing appetite for this type of loans by state governors. And in entertainment, a U.S. show promoter has cancelled Malian music signee Zinoliski's upcoming tour. Now, the show promoter says Zinoliski's tour was cancelled due to unforeseen circumstances. Well, this comes in the wake of the death of Nigerian singer Mohbad and the accusation that some members of his former record label were involved in his death. And in sports, Nigeria's Tobi Amosu has won the Diamond League trophy for the 3rd consecutive time. With 12.33 seconds record, Amosu emerged the winner of the fiercely contested 100 meters hurdles event yesterday night, where Tobi Amosu set the record at the competition in Oregon, USA, where she won the world title in 2022.
And now, we bring you news from around the world.
The main liberal opposition political movement in Egypt says it will not nominate a candidate in the presidential election due next year after one of its leaders was sentenced to 6 months in prison. The Free Current Coalition said that its leader, Hisham Kasim, had been a potential presidential candidate when he was found guilty of slander and verbally assaulting a police officer. His supporters say the charges were politically motivated, and President Abdul Fattah al-Sisi is expected to announce he is standing for a 3rd term, but he's yet to do so. Well, that's the news, but before we go, a recap. On the news this afternoon, you heard that the Commissioner for Education, Professor Chinedu Mom, says the state government has not authorized any form of payment for school registration in public schools in Rivers State. Airstrikes have destroyed dozens of illegal oil refining sites in Rivers State. A man has renewed his call for justice 3 years after a police stray bullet left him in a wheelchair in Port Harcourt. The federal government is to meet with labor leaders today over the planned indefinite strike. And President Bola Tinubu has arrived in New York for the UN General Assembly. On the foreign scene, the main liberal opposition political movement in Egypt says it will not nominate a candidate in the presidential election due next year. The news was edited by Martha Okerinkem. Cloudy weather in Port Harcourt this afternoon. To reach the news team, send an SMS or WhatsApp to 0808